welcome back to BLOCKTV, where it is that time of the week where we gather the wheelers and dealers of the sphere, have them answer questions while they try to stay sober. Yes, it's blockchain and booze. And with us today, returning hero, everybody is scared of him, Yaniv Feldman, crypto economist. Glad to have you with us. Of course, we cannot do this without, as long as she's here on our continent, Leah Jonas,
yeah.
Jonas, thank you. Head of Global Partnership at Celsius Network. Salut. Also with us, the millennial, Eylon Aviv from dhack.io.
Cheers.
And she knows everything. Maya Zahavi joining us today, crypto consultant. Lovely to have you. Folks, let's start with the news of the week. Because, God, we have been covering ETFs, or the wish for one, for so long. And here we have VanEck and SolidX offering an ETF-like, I think they're calling it a BTF, Bitcoin product to large investors. Is this an historic moment or an anticlimax? Let me read you the background. You all know it, though. VanEck Securities Corp and SolidX Management, a duo that have unsuccessfully, in the past, petitioned the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission for over a year to approve an ETF, an exchange-traded fund that invests in Bitcoin. Needless to say, that did not work. The companies, though, said in a statement earlier this week that by using Rule 144A of the Securities Act of 1933, they'll be able to issue shares in the VanEck SolidX Bitcoin Trust to qualified institutional buyers, meaning that is very specific to one form of buyers. Clearly kosher. They're beating the system within the system, so it feels like. Is this good? Do we need this even? Please.
So we already have this with Grayscale. Grayscale's Bitcoin Trust is literally the exact same model.
Pantera as well.
Right, exactly. So I don't think it's historic necessarily. I think that they're diverting what they've run up against 3 times in a row.
Other people, that this is being marketed as something.
Yeah, I think they're spinning it the way that they want to, and look, I mean, Grayscale has been very successful. They last year reported like upwards of 15 million in profits from that specifically, but it's not necessarily the best entry point for institutional investors. I mean, it was trading it's 35% above spot price, and they don't even do their own redemption, so it's very hard. It's not really as accessible as it's pitched to be. I'd be interested to see if VanEck changes that and does their own redemptions, and it has been a popular product, so I think that they're going the right way with it, but the
They're
ETF
not the first,
is still,
and it's not historic.
And then the ETF is still the end goal here.
Is the ETF the end goal, guys?
I think that one of the reasons that they pushed it through is basically so they can get, like what Leah said, they can get the test run before they go live. I think that creating a mechanism that will allow them to buy and sell and redeem and work with investors, so that the fund itself will already have a virtual track record when they go live with the ETF. I think that eventually that's the only reason for them to actually do that, because I don't see them making a lot of money with it. I think it's just a one-stop
on the way
Proof of
to
concept.
Yeah.
So let me just add on that. I think a lot of the VanEck SolidX move, they've been working on this for at least 5 years, right? And a lot of it's supposed to be a test case and compare that to a real ETF and show the SEC how much market manipulation really happens and what kind of metrics they're gauging in that. And then now they can have the track record and show that to the SEC in order to get the ETF approval. So in that is sort of a novel concept. Whether or not that's the right track remains to be seen.
Yeah.
Do we think it's the right track?
Yeah. I feel like this means that there's demand for this. There's institutional demand for all of this, and if Grayscale is making $50 million in profit. 15, sorry.
Yeah.
That means there is demand for this. So
Wait, I'm sorry. Just because you build it does not mean they're going to
I know.
We found that out.
I know. I feel like everybody in this industry found that out exactly.
Not even build it. Just because you announce it doesn't mean everybody will come.
But I feel like a lot of institutions are already kind of figuring out ways to buy Bitcoin right now.
But why would they want an ETF? So here's the thing. Think about the Q1 2020. How many institutional products are going to be out in the market? You're going to have Bakkt. You're going to have the INX exchange. You're going to have spot and futures and different new and the Nasdaq as well, and futures that are totally regulated. And then the question is, would institutionals want an ETF? Because I think as is, ETF is usually a retail product, kind of like approved. So if you're having, if you're making or designing an ETF for crypto that is based for institutional, it's kind of like an oxymoron within an instrument.
An oxymoron is a very political
I would say
way of putting it.
It's
It
the
kind of defeats
institutions.
the purpose.
It might be the institutions who want to block this ETF so they can be the only ones investing in Bitcoin and not let retail investors join in. This is just.
Leah,
So
you said
I'm going
the
conspiracy.
ETF is. I want to go back to the ETF, okay? Because VanEck, not just them. You know, we have seen the attempts to get an ETF approved. We have seen people pull it just to save face, whatnot. Is it the golden goose for this market?
I don't think golden goose is the right term. Like we've said many times before, I think that if
But
and
my mother's
when
watching for the first time. Go ahead.
if and when an ETF approval will happen, it will be. I don't think that's what's going to drive the retail market or drive anyone, tons of volume into the market, but it will be a significant milestone saying that there is a strong regulator supporting the fact that the market is behaving in a way that could be expected from a financial market.
Right.
And it will be a catalyst towards something that will come up later, but I don't think that by itself is what we're looking for.
By the way, make note of the different trends that we see since the new sort of rally began in late April, where you have less retail investors coming into the rally and more institutionals that are playing all sides, meaning they're not only looking for the spot price, they're also looking for the futures
treating
and
this as a
leverages.
market.
And derivatives and everything run. I think that
of the derivatives.
But I think you need both. Like you need
Yeah.
retail and you need institutional, and I think that to Maya's point, that if the ETF is a more retail-focused product, then really you need that balance. And there's a lot of things that are coming out in the derivative space right now for Bitcoin that is not accessible. And I think that if you only have institutional players in,
What have we done then?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think it's a one foot in front of the other, and you need both at the same time.
It is some sort of a kosher stamp. I want you to raise your glasses because we're moving to the other side of the globe. Well, we're going to stay for.
We have to
Cheers.
raise?
Yeah, cheers.
Cheers.
Salute. I don't know
I
how
feel
to
like
say
this
it
is now a
in
drinking game.
Finger. But can you say it in Chinese? Binance, ladies and gentlemen, plagiarizing. BitMax congratulates Binance on plagiarizing the futures platform is our headline. Earlier this week, Binance made headlines announcing the purchase of the JEX platform in order to launch its own crypto futures platform. Unfortunately for them, parts of the white paper for that platform were copied word for word from rival exchange BitMax white paper, and Binance seems to have missed that. I'm thinking Melania Trump and Michelle Obama. Remember that?
I'm thinking shitcoin white papers.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. BitMax made sure, though, to let the world know. Here's the tweet. With a sarcastic response, the tweet says, "Congrats on the testnet futures launches, Binance. Glad to see you enjoyed reading our documentation as much as we enjoyed writing it." Of course, Binance, answered. This whole thing ends very friendly.
Yeah.
That said, it does raise the question. Exposed, okay? One, exposed. Two, just the mere laziness, ladies and gentlemen.
I think that.
And for people playing in the sphere to think that this is something that will not be, yes.
As
Please,
someone,
Yaniv, and
as
then-
someone who wrote a lot of content and worked in the content industry for a long time, in these kind of areas, especially for products, a lot of the documentation is being copied. I think that 80% of the
But
documentation.
documentation isn't content. Documentation is
Yeah,
your
no,
product in
Yeah,
this
I know,
case,
but,
right?
but exactly, and I think that a lot of the content writers for product documentation, what they do is they look at similar product, they copy paste and change a few words, and then they put it in. It's a very common behavior.
I
Not
know,
saying
but
it's
let
good,
me just ask this
but
in
it's
a
common.
completely different medium as I speak about myself. As somebody who teaches ethics,
Yeah.
shouldn't you quantify that, though, when you're publishing something?
The question, I'm
Ethics in
leaving
crypto?
legality. No, leaving legality aside for a second. And I always like to be the contrarian in these kind of arguments. But let's think about what the documentation is used for. If it's used to explain a behavior in the system or how the system is working, and the system was working the same as another system, why does it matter? I know I'm putting legality aside. That's a big question by itself.
So
But
say it's-
again, it just doing the job of explaining in a much lower cost for the business. So I'm not saying it's okay. I'm just explaining the logic behind it. It serves the purpose. So
It's always easier to copy paste.
All right, so I want to say something about like China. So I lived in China for almost 3 years, and I worked with a lot of ad tech. I was in ad tech and I was working with a lot of tech companies. And there's something very important about Chinese companies. They cannot go from 0 to 1, but they can go from 1 to 10 very, very good and very, very quickly. Meaning, like they will not invent something new, but they will take, you take ICQ and then you make it into QQ and then it goes exponential.
Or as Trump says, they're just stealing our ideas.
Segway is an interesting story. There's a 9bot company that literally copied Segway. Segway wanted to ban them from importing to the US, and then that company just made so much money they bought out Segway. So what I'm trying to say is
that's how they do business?
It's not only how they do business, it's the least of what they copied, if this is just the documentation.
I think it's a nothing burger. I think of all the things that people have plagiarized, stolen, copied in crypto, this is the most nothing of the nothing
it's
of
only
the
because
nothing.
it was Arthur Hayes and CZ. Like it's Arthur Hayes and CZ.
This is a jumping board, exactly what I thought you guys would say. Let's just go back to CZ's AMA from, I think it was the end of August, which is not so long ago, where he announced the futures feature. Let's take a look.
So a lot of have happened in the last little while. I try to do this every month or so. For example, just the last week, on top of my head, let me move the camera down a little bit. So on top of my head, so last Friday we added more assets to margin. Last Saturday we were doing the Launchpad announcements, and then Sunday we finished the Launchpad a lottery draw. On Monday we released lending, which is a big feature.
You just made a great point when we were off studio, and that is, are these three people operating the Binance operation, which I've been wondering for a while. And if, then they're geniuses, okay? They're freaking geniuses.
Lean startup.
But did you hear that long list of promises? Hype. Now, what do we think, first of all, of this feature that was so launched in such a statement?
Okay, so contrary to what I think, let me be the contrarian
Yes.
in a way, in an unexpected way. I think Binance has executed majestically so far, right?
Yes.
And thinking that they're just three people, I don't know, but they are
If
in
so,
like 30
I
jurisdictions
know
at
of
least.
at least 9 different people.
Me too, I was gonna say.
No, they have a lot of people. They have a lot of people.
No, they're just not focused on the,
Still, even if there were 10,
They have
it's
a
impressive.
huge
Go ahead.
dev team.
Yeah.
They have a huge dev team. The fact is that they're introducing new product across different jurisdictions. They have their new Binance X protocol, some SDKs. They're integrating Tendermint in that. They also have the Launchpad. And to be honest, I cannot follow all the different Binance subsidiaries. So if one of them screwed up, that's like the least of the issues here with Binance. And I think we're going to see so many other futures product becoming available in Q1 2020 that this is just going to be forgotten.
All those
all
products,
Yeah,
all
of
those
course.
announcements, guys, come on. That's what I'm asking. It's production value aside, Binance
I'm
is
saying
a
Binance is
behemoth.
going to run out of money really soon.
It's going to
really,
run out of
I don't
money.
Binance.
No.
No.
I actually tend to agree, but why do you think so?
I think first off, we're looking at the volumes. They're not going up in any way. That's where they're making most of their money. I think that even though they did launch the derivatives and future platforms, that's not making them as much money as they would like to right now, at least. And they're spreading out themselves on so many different plays and so many different platforms, which on the one hand could be a good strategy if something takes off. But on the other hand, right now at least, it doesn't seem like anything besides their main businesses. And their main business isn't getting bigger, it's getting smaller.
So think about it differently. Think about it differently.
We're
I'm
all
not going to
disagreeing.
disagree with you. I'm not going to
Okay, we're going to
disagree with
start
that.
with the disagreement from here.
But the way I see it, Binance basically came into a bear market, put in the on and turned on the on switch by the IEOs. And all the rally that we've seen since the Justin Sun IEO is literally manufactured by different innovations that have come out of Binance. And a lot of the growth has come in both from them bringing in value and the BNB spike in the price. And we've seen it come down lately. However, I think they have enough of a margin that they've taken away in the last 6 months to put aside that they can still fuel and invest in new products. The
For at
question
least a couple
is,
of years.
for at least, let's put it for at least the following year. The question is whether or not they're going to lose the market because it's going to switch between retail institutionals and Asia and the US, right? And my takeaway is that I do not understand Asia. So I don't understand Asia.
They
And
love
to be
gambling.
honest, just looking at all like me being actually not the whitest person on the panel, let me just say that I think none of us understand Asia.
No,
I lived there for
let-
3
okay.
years.
Honey, you lived there for 3 years. I lived in Germany for 2.
Yeah.
Doesn't make me German. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, so I say I'm going to put a whole new spin on this. In one of the products they're launching is lending. They are sitting on some of the deepest pools of assets in the market today. And if you look at the derivatives that we just talked about, the borrowing and lending market will be one of the most significant markets. And if they're lending out, the assets within that pool, they have a much longer runway than just what they have on reserves from BNB or what they're making off of trading.
The question is how much cash flow they have available, because look at like just the 3, I think, latest projects that they came out with, which is just not only crypto-based lending, they also have a margin lending platform out, and they also have an interest, kind of like an interest swap, I forgot what they named it, product. And the question is how the risk management works and how much they're willing to absorb and how much insurance they have on the side. And to be perfectly honest, I think they've been the first crypto company, correct me if I'm wrong, all of you, that actually came in and said, hey, we're going to dig deep into our fund and reimburse our clients. And that's proven.
I don't know if the first it was the
Yeah.
most
It
widely
happened
reported.
Yeah.
They made
The
a big-
biggest.
The
No,
biggest.
no, let's put it this way, to
CoinCheck.
Yeah,
CoinCheck
they weren't
did
the
same.
first, but they were the one.
CoinCheck
think
did that for $500 million. So no,
They had 700, if I recall.
no, 70.
7-0. Either way, they weren't the only ones or the first.
gonna
Let me
fact
ask you about.
Well, let's add that Binance also wants to compete with Ethereum.
I
now
did that
with
on my
like a
next
smart
question. No,
contract
not just
platform.
Ethereum. Venus. What do we think of Venus? By the way, terrible name.
So first off, you need to
I mean,
understand.
does everybody just announce a coin?
I want to be the Scorpio as the Scorpio. I
was
want to be
about
the
to say.
Scorpio of all.
Yeah,
like-
are we just grabbing astrology?
I was
symbols?
exactly what I
We're
thought.
making astrology
Scorpio
symbols,
coin.
symbols
Yeah.
great again.
Somebody's
Yeah.
writing the sequel to Hair, the
Dibs on
musical, and they're all going to be
non-cancer.
coins.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, Venus. What do we think of Venus?
I'm not taking cancer.
So, first off, not all people understand Venus. Let's start from that.
I don't get it. I'm not the first one to
Most
say.
people say Venus is Binance's competition to Libra, which it
That's
isn't.
how they market it.
It isn't.
Okay.
It isn't.
Hi.
It's a platform to create stablecoins that are backed by specific fiat currencies, at least at the moment. So obviously, being Binance gives you a lot of room for liquidity, and onboarding those stable currencies into Binance's platform will give them accessibility to potential investors or traders from day zero, which is good, but it's not a Libra competitor. It might be in the future. I know that there are conversations about creating something on top of Venus that will do that, but right now it's not.
Okay,
Yeah,
so two things. One, I don't ever see it as a Libra competitor because Libra is a corporate. It's a corporate currency.
Consortium.
Yeah, but it's run by a corporation. What you're talking about with Venus is literally with sovereign currencies, right?
No.
Okay, so
No,
they're
stable coins.
No, but
I can come in.
stablecoins-
I can come in as Goldman Sachs and tell them I want to create a yuan-backed stablecoin on your platform, and we'll give you the entire infrastructure
Okay.
to do that. So
I think that if
at
you're
least that's how.
That's how you read it.
Yeah.
my biggest question with stablecoins, and I'm a huge supporter of them. I think that they're the Trojan horse of crypto, and then that's a whole different
We'll
conversation.
get there in a second. Don't
But
worry.
what's the end goal? We have like 5 different like stable coins back to the USD. Like, what are they going for? Like
That's the
market
guys.
share. You have all the market share. Are you looking for
How many banks?
acquisition?
How many banks do you need in the world?
Yeah, but I don't think that you need 5 Federal Reserves.
I don't think you need one Federal Reserve.
Yes.
That's not the discussion. The thing is,
Stablecoin
it's a business.
It's not a Fed Reserve
It's
kind
a
of
business.
currency. It's basically an asset-backed currency.
Libra?
and
An
not-
asset.
Yeah, but
which is the fiat. And just to go back to the previous question that Yael posed, which is it a Libra competitor, right?
Yeah.
So Libra, one of, I think, the most distinct features of Libra is that it says, I'm above a freaking currency, right? I'm above a nation state and any fiat. I'm going to just reinvent my own fiat, and it's going to be a mix of a basket, right?
Or it's something
And-
that sounds very much like a reserve bank. Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's not something that is, although it's controversial for a controversial corporate, it's not controversial for any banking consortia, i.e. The IMF or the ECB, to go and actually offer a stable coin backed by a basket of currencies. Binance is not looking to do that. It's looking to actually look at a yuan-backed or a US dollar.
Yeah.
And to answer the question, how many stable coins do we need? A lot of the question, that the response would be, what do we need stable coins for? And we say, as
Traders.
crypto people say, hey, we need it for less volatility. But at the end of the day, if you look both at Tether and a USDC, most of the transactions are actually for inter-exchange settlements, right? Basically looking at it as interbank network on-chain. And in that sense, you see that the difference between USDC and Tether is whether or not the entities are SEC regulated. And so the question is, does a Binance stablecoin resolve or threaten the USDC? And then we go back to the regulatory arbitrage, which Binance has mastered.
No, they have mastered in that. But I want to stick with China, okay? And at least you lived there for 3 years. I'm not making fun of you. But listen, needless to say, apropos China, apropos Libra, with Libra's announcement, everybody and their mother announced a Digicoin, or amassed as crypto. Reports, rumors, and supposition out of China earlier this week by somebody who Yaniv actually knows. But just let's quote CoinDesk, okay? Seem to suggest that China is getting to the end of the line much faster than anybody else. Quoting the People's Bank of China, PBOC is charging full speed ahead with its digital currency plans, hoping to beat Facebook's Libra to the market. A dedicated team from the central bank's digital currency research lab is now developing the system in a closed-door environment away from the PBOC's downtown Beijing headquarters, and that is according to sources close, because everything from China can't be fully confirmed, let's face that. Now, the team has been working in this separate location since early summer. The idea is that by end of October, this is happening in China. I know it's not cryptocurrency, neither is Libra, folks, okay, in its full essence. Let's say this is indeed true. How much of a game changer this is? How much of a game changer will it be?
So I have to say something about China in this specific regard. China, in my opinion, and I lived there from 2014 to 2017, they are the only country who understood exactly what Bitcoin is. And I even wrote like a post about this on 4chan, that Bitcoin Cash is like a Chinese attempt to take over Bitcoin. And then I guess once that failed, you know, they executed more and more. Like
Not only that, they partnered with some platforms that have already honed, apropos mass adoption of just usage in China. I don't think we even realize how advanced they are in the fact that there's no paper. Okay, they know how to use it.
Yeah, and something that's very important to say is that, you know, you have probably 5 or 6 billion people in China, and they're already using it. This is numbers that you can't really get in the West. Get all of Europe, get all of the US, and it's still nothing compared to that.
I know, so we're all a bunch of white people sitting here. What does it do to the rest of the announcements? Seriously.
So here's the question: does China really need a CBGC? Because they've leapfrogged us by like at least 2 decades, right? I mean, they just pay with their faces at this point. And then the question is, if their digital payment solutions have surpassed the West so much, why do they need a CBDC?
To tell you the truth of my theory, and I don't know, I think it's great freaking PR.
I think
if they launch it before Libra comes out, irrespective of the fact that it's not the same
They're
thing.
working on it for
They
5 years.
want-
They're working on it for
come
5
on, what
years.
does it mean
And I
5 years?
just-
It's 3 years they've studied and invited crypto companies to come in and tell them what
No.
what the
This
hell
is
are you
China
doing?
doesn't operate the same as the West. You have to understand that once decision has been made, everything powers through there, like in that direction. And like there's no bullshit. There is no like ethics involved. There's none of that
There's
stuff.
no ethics. I don't know if there's no bullshit.
I'm going to throw
Go ahead.
a left field. I think that this is great for Bitcoin because a cashless society is a surveillance society. And if you look at what China's doing and you get to watch this experiment from the outside perspective, I think it will scare a lot of people into
paper?
No.
$100
Bitcoin.
bills?
No,
To
I think it's
Bitcoin?
gonna,
You think that?
I think it's going to.
There's nothing more surveillance than Bitcoin the way it is right now. So
Or
and
go to
FATF
piracy
rules-
coins and go to piracy coins. Like what I think it will drive more people into crypto because I think that it's an example of what happens when a
When
country,
a country basically,
issues a currency like that and
that
gets
will
to
rate
scale
you.
everything they do. Yeah.
So this isn't just any country. Like Eylon said, it's a really big country, but it's also a country with a plan called the Silk Belt Road, where they're looking to usurp the U.S. dollar as a global reserve. And this is happening at the same time where we're in the midst of a geopolitical
trade war from
I want to say meltdown and not be over dramatic, but basically it's a meltdown.
Yeah.
I mean, we just saw
Here,
the British
Brexit.
Parliament. There we go. PMQ.
It's a meltdown.
Boris, thank you.
Moves. And also we have like the EU coming up and stepping up because of the US-led FATCA and sanction rule and saying, you know what, we need our own FMI. And if we need our own FMI, the most plausible solution for that is having a digital currency. And if we're looking for a digital currency, we want one that can also help us implement a negative or prepare for a world with negative interest rates, right? And in comes China and says, you know what? We got Silicon Belt Road. We got our own little legal jurisdictions in Africa. We've reached out our octopus arms all over, and we're gonna start exporting the CBDC yuan. But the difference between the China plan, I think, in Libra and any other CBDC that we've seen so far is it's already reached or approached the biggest Chinese corporates, not necessarily banks, Alibaba to name one, and they're starting out small and expanding. This is not a plug and play version of what Libra is saying, hey, we're going to get $2.7 billion on day, 2.7 billion users on day one. So it's going to be interesting. I just think that this is actually a good time, saying Venus and Libra and whatever new astrological sign we're going to put in the mix and new CBDC, to start thinking what really the architecture behind all these projects are. If we're looking to reinvent central bank money systems and financial market infrastructure, are we looking to change the...
I think they are, not us. I think they're looking
I think we are too.
Okay.
The ECB, the IMF, the Bank of England, looking for a new world. They're kind of playing around with airdropping money to citizens. They're playing around with who can be, which company is allowed to have a central bank account, not only banks, and et cetera, et cetera.
And apropos, all of this, was completely trumping the news out of the Marshall Islands this week, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell me what happened?
So basically,
and I wonder why this did not get as much play. Go ahead.
Basically,
it's like round 3.
The Marshall Islands is a small country that up until now was supported by the U.S. dollar. That was the only currency there. Last year, they passed a bill saying that they're going to issue state-backed cryptocurrency. It's capped at 24 million coins, and they have an inflation of 4% per year. It's not changeable, at least not in the code. And the thing is, it's the first time that you actually have a sovereign currency that is natively digital. They didn't have a currency up until now, and at least according to the current rule set in FATF and everyone else, banks are obliged to accept it. There could be an argument on whether or not, because it's a new currency, it's a small country, if you want to or not. Right now, you can change the shekel to, I don't know, Singaporean dollar here in Israel. Maybe some exchanges would be able to do that or would be willing to do that, but in most places they won't. So it's a matter of question on how many countries would be willing to accept that new currency anyway. As something of value.
But they just basically jumped into the pool just with a much lesser splash because it's the Marshall Islands at the end of the day. But
yeah, it's an Israeli company that's developing
exactly.
everything for them.
And that said, I want to make a turn a bit apropos, national coins, digital coins. We're talking China, where everybody's awaiting the Libra, again, that this is I'm a little scared of Yaniv. There's the dark horse, okay, that some will argue is the true decentralized coin to launch first, and namely that's the Gram. It's also scheduled to come out at the end of October, okay? That's kind of, and I think they don't really have a choice. But Telegram was missing from the news, or not enough in the news as far as I was concerned. They've not just been charging ahead with the gram, they've been instrumental in one of the biggest apropos meltdowns in the world. In one of the biggest mainstream stories this week, the Hong Kong protests, one could argue that democracy won a little this week when Carrie Lam, Hong Kong's chief executive thus far, well placed by the Chinese, withdrew the contentious extradition bill. But thousands of Hong Kong protesters, folks, took their cues from more than 100 groups on Telegram. The thing that moved that demonstration was Telegram. According to protest organizers and supporters, confirmed sources, Telegram itself took the controversial step of changing the network on their behalf. I don't know if you guys know this. As reported by Reuters earlier this week, they rolled out an update designed to protect Hong Kong protesters' identities. The upcoming feature basically cloaks users' phone numbers to prevent authorities from being able to look up the people participating in protests, approved clearly by a group of people in Telegram who would do anything to go against the Chinese government, I believe, because this comes from that point of view. Now, Pavel Durov has been accused of creating a network that helps terrorists in the past, okay? The bombers in Paris used Telegram to mastermind those things. On the other hand, we've got the Hong Kong protesters using Telegram with his approval that affects also 200, he changes the features, that affects almost 250 million users for the sake of that. Is that what? Go.
I feel like this is, I mean, look, I agree with this action, but I also feel like this is playing God in a sense, right? You're taking the matters into your own hands, and to some extent, I truly believe that decentralized platforms should operate as they were presented, and that's it, because otherwise you're really looking at the preferences of the creators in order to, like, you're looking to them to determine whether or not your social cause is worthy of like protecting. Like,
Isn't
what
that
happens
what's
to
going to
someone
happen
else?
with
Yeah,
every
but-
cause?
I mean, this is what happened with Facebook. I mean, I think that
Yeah, but-
Facebook intervened, you know, when they didn't agree with the political movements that were happening. And I'm not here to say, like, I agree with one side or the other, but I think that we're entering dangerous territory where we're appealing to the corporations in which we operate on as opposed to anything. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like we're entering
But
a gray
Telegram-
area.
I think you're, I have to say two things. First of all, Hong Kong and Telegram, that is 101 dissident tech for everyone who cares about democracy and thinks that surveillance capitalism is coming for our own democracy and freedoms. We need to learn from them. And one of the Telegram, by the way, innovations hasn't only been that, but also the mesh networks, the different chemical engineering that they did for the tear gas. I mean, this is, the Hong Kong protests put forth a lot of open questions for us as a crypto community to actually ask. For example, public transportation. Do we want that to be a digital payment? Do we want it to be tracked back to your identity and your credit card payment or your own wallet? Or should that be something
Surveillance,
that is
which
totally
is fun.
anonymous, right? And going back to Leah's point, I think it also poses the dilemma. How much of like the Facebook publications, which is almost like posting something on Twitter in the public square, freedom
It
of
is.
speech, as compared to having the freedom of privacy,
Right.
right? And that's not a new dilemma. That's something that I think a lot of
The Arab Spring
intelligence
brought it about already.
Yeah.
Look, in
Right.
Egypt,
There
Facebook
we
got
go.
the people out.
Yeah.
Right.
And then Mubarak shut Facebook down.
And that
And
was
who
Twitter.
gets to choose? Who
Yes.
gets to choose what,
And then
like, where
Sisi
the
came
draw
in.
the
Never
line?
exists.
Like, where do we draw the line, and who gets to choose where that line goes?
But maybe this
Not
is the choice
Zuck.
of the
Let's start
people.
from
Let's
that.
say, okay, so it's not Zuck. But at the other hand, it's not Sergey either. Like, why should Telegram say who?
Pavel.
What?
Pavel. but
Pavel.
okay.
Oh, yeah, right.
Sorry,
Sorry.
yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah.
So sorry, Pavel.
Don't confuse your Russian.
It's a dangerous game.
And
So,
they're
but
listening, yeah.
you know, they still have the encryption keys, and then they decide. They could theoretically decide to.
But theoretically, CZ can decide to make changes. Do you understand
Yeah,
what
but
I'm
Yeah.
saying?
theoretically, they could release it
I
like for
think-
hostage. They could hold those names for hostage, and they could release those numbers to a government if they want. So
Yeah.
then you're giving ultimate god power to platforms
Yeah,
that
so-
are supposed to be decentralized and privacy oriented in the first place.
If you
So-
look
so,
at history, and that's the interesting part. If you're looking at not just 10, 20 years, but hundreds, and I mean like centuries long, you see the pendulum swings between centralization and decentralization and always goes back and forth. Right now, I think we just crossed the middle point towards decentralization, and we're going to be on the way there for 10, 20, maybe 30 years
You know
more.
what scares me about that
And-
scenario? That
Yeah,
means it's World
it
War
has
time.
it has its own
Yeah.
it has
Yeah.
its own
Yeah.
ramifications. The last time we seen something like that was 1929, but I think that's what's going to happen, and it's going to swing back. I think 30, 40, 50 years from now. So the only thing that we can do is look at it, try to do our best to support what we believe in, and just try to go with the flow.
So let me just continue that line. I think both Graham as a cryptocurrency protocol and all the issues that we raised, freedom of speech and dependency, actually comes in and kind of pitches the whole concept of decentralization, that we
agree.
don't want to be dependent on one single point of failure, right?
Yeah.
That we want to have the option of migration or data portability or,
Yep.
or social network portability, and not have to come in and suck up to like a
To
Pavel
it.
or Sergey or Mark.
Yeah.
Or CZ.
Yeah.
The question
Or
is,
CZ.
how do we get that ideology mass adopted? Maybe with a phone. I'm segueing.
Wow.
That was smooth.
Okay, there you go.
The Chinese version or the original one?
Crypto exchange, here we
Israeli
launches. Hold on. New blockchain phone. Does anybody really need this? Okay. I think you know this. Singaporean crypto exchange Huobi announced this week that it is launching its own blockchain phone called the Acute. Angle later this week, accompanying the phone launch is the launch of Node, the whole network's native token, of course, which can be used to purchase the phone as well. Okay, why is an exchange launching a phone?
Okay, so two things. I have a speculatory kind of
Please.
input. I think that it would be utterly ridiculous to think that they're going to go up against Samsung in the new phone and get market share from them. I think that this is, in my opinion, a play to create tech that will be acquired by a larger carrier. I mean, there's no way that they're going to get the market share from one of the top 5 carriers out
So
there.
the
They
idea
already-
is just to make a big
It's an
exit.
exit strategy. I mean, that's what I think it is. There's no way that they think that they're going to get into the phone business. The manufacturing
many
costs
tried it
alone.
before?
Manufacturing costs alone,
Yeah.
or
What are you
like
talking about?
I have no idea.
Swedish? Israeli?
yeah.
Chinese? Fox?
American?
It has to be an exit strategy, because otherwise it would just be like someone just threw a dart at a board and was like, oh, I guess we're going to do that today.
Does it work?
So hold on. I think the people who are, I don't know, the phone manufacturers, they think that this fits in, but it completely doesn't. Like nothing says, like, if I see someone
Nothing
with a blockchain,
says old world.
yeah, and you see someone with a blockchain phone, you're like, oh, okay, maybe I should kidnap this guy and steal all his crypto. Like, I mean, this is exactly what this says, and I don't understand how these companies are thinking.
They're
Can it
thinking
bring-
that there's an oligarch that needs to have a phone where his girlfriend can't find out, or the mistress the wife can't
I mean, that's
find
a
about
solid
that.
market,
and
though.
about
That's
the
a really solid
cryptocurrencies
market.
And to be honest,
That's
I
a
think,
startup.
Yeah.
I think it's called Fear
Seriously?
Labs. I
Stop
think
it.
that was the
Yeah.
initial use case.
Have some more to
You guys
drink.
want to stop this? Discourse
Where?
of a
Moving
company?
along, for the sake of
Can
full
we say that we're
disclosure.
sharing?
For the sake of full
Yeah.
disclosure. God, we're going to another.
Just to stick to you.
Okay, let's talk altcoins, not to be confused with the term shitcoins.
Wait,
Yes.
I want to comment about the phone. Can I?
Shoot,
Yeah.
comment about the phone.
Okay, I think most of the whole talk about blockchain phones completely dismisses the point that in order to have a secure wallet for crypto for a private key on a phone, at the end of the day, you're going to need an enclave, and that's something that Apple has been working on for a really, really long time, including different kinds of access. And
And they're probably going to beat everybody.
and they're going to beat
They're gonna
everyone,
beat
and they
everybody.
already have that coming
Yeah.
out with the FinTech Play, with the Apple Card, and Apple Pay, and they also have, I think, some of the
I
best
can't wait for Apple
cryptographers
Pay.
working on it.
when Apple Coin.
Yeah, exactly.
God.
Left
With
field.
Apple
With Apple ID and it's
Yeah,
private.
which makes me. I'm actually thinking, how come Apple did not announce a coin?
They don't need to.
They don't need to.
Oh, they're coming out of left field. Yeah, no,
Yeah, just hold on,
Exactly.
wait.
They don't need to. Is the go down. Okay,
If
moving
they-
to
if
apropos.
they announce-
apropos. Yeah.
If they announce something, it will be market ready, very good.
I mean, look what happened with Libra. It was like June 16th. They kept it under wraps for so long. Like they were literally.
They had to be public. They had to go public.
I
like
know,
with
but they
Libra.
were
wasn't
keeping
a
it
choice.
so quiet for so long.
They weren't.
I don't think that before that.
Yeah, they were way too noisy.
Make it more active
Okay,
on crypto
okay.
Twitter.
Listen, but I am asking about the future of Bitcoin, altcoins, and whatnot. We're going to combine this topic. A sure death for altcoins? Question mark, or too soon to call it a funeral? Okay. Bitcoin's total share of crypto market now is the highest since March 2017. That was a landmark this week as well. I believe this was this week. And also in an interview, I'm just going to tell you about it, done this week, I did this week with Yaniv of eToro, who actually said something quite interesting, that he thinks that we should stop waiting for the next rally because rallies are dead. Because Bitcoin has matured enough, and that there's not going to be another big rally as we are hoping or expecting. I don't know. Okay, this is an idea, a theory that should not be completely discounted. But Bitcoin price now in early phase of the next bull cycle is a question. Plus, should we just bury the rest of them at this point?
So the first panel that I joined here, it was at the bottom, I think. It was about Bitcoin being at 3K, something like that. And I said, 3.5, whatever. And I said,
3.1.
Right, who knows?
Whatever.
3.261.
So I said to a specific individual that sat here on this panel that, the crypto winter will be over when all the shit coins that he marketed will die. Anyway,
That didn't happen.
That did not happen.
Yeah,
That's the
right.
thing. I don't think all the altcoins are going to die, but the vast majority, like 98, 99% of them will die if they don't have utility. They don't have a merit to exist, and they will die, and then we can move on to the next rally. This is my opinion.
This is our life, moving on from a new rally to another shitcoin rally.
No,
Like,
it's not a
let me just
shitcoin.
understand
It's a
this.
utility rally, and
It's a utility. Is there a utility?
Yeah, I think so.
To what? To raise money and chill?
No. For a utility
What's wrong with
tokens.
the utility token, guys?
There are some that
SEC just approved several.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think there will always be trading opportunities on altcoins. I think that they'll still continue to trade on them, especially as the volatility is high. I think that if you're looking at BTC as growing in popularity, wouldn't that just mean stabilization?
And not only that, I'm asking with you, isn't the world about to be tokenized? Forget what's going to be in that.
I want to try and make a couple points to your two questions. One, about will there be another rally in general? If we're looking historically and economically, all conditions sets to yes. The question is, will there be another 1000x? Probably not. Probably not, but 100x, maybe. 50x, probably. 10x, probably yes.
Likely.
We're going to quote you on that.
But no problem.
This is a nice tweet.
No problem. No time frame.
Yes.
But the real question is what's going to be with altcoins. I think, and that's my opinion, that history will repeat itself the same as it did with the previous cycle of altcoins.
Okay.
If we're talking about what happened between 2011 and 2014, where there were about a few hundreds of abbreviations of Bitcoin of all sizes that came up, none of them appeared in the top 100, maybe besides Litecoin in 2017. And I think that the same thing is going to happen in 2020, 2021, where we'll see a new wave of assets. There could be tokenized in one way or another. There could be securities like what props are doing or what Blockstack is doing, that there are security authorized. They're not exactly security tokens.
Maybe someone will invent an amazing use case that we haven't thought about yet, guys.
Maybe, but I think that there's a much higher chance that another digital asset will be the next 1000x than Bitcoin is.
Yes,
Then
quickly,
Bitcoin.
guys, raise
Wow,
yes, please.
interesting.
Okay, so one, I kind of get Yoni's point, and I do agree to that to some extent. One, because I think we've already proven that Bitcoin is the crypto reserve.
Yeah.
Number two, let's not forget that a lot of what we call altcoin, and we pool them into this one asset, that's not exact. They're basically coins that breezed Ethereum mostly, or Bitcoin, in 2017 in order to deliver a product. And most of the product, one of the most successful use cases were new protocols, right? We got Cosmos, we got Polkadot, we got a bunch of others, and Eth2. And all these protocols are going to be launched in Q1 2020. We're going to see that. Mm-hmm. And most of the architecture behind these protocols is two-layered, meaning you have a base layer and then you have a second layer. Now, they still haven't gotten all these partnerships, right? And two things have to be,
And they still
you have
worth
to keep in
over
mind.
$1 billion.
Hold on, exactly. Now, keep in mind that one, not all of them still have have liquidity and are traded, and number two, they need people to build on them. Otherwise, value would not accrue.
otherwise they
So, new projects are going to need to raise funds, issue new tokens, or be paid by all these new alts
Build on my
on
platform.
Ethereum. Build on my platform, I'll subsidize you,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And you
This is
look
what
at
happens right now.
program.
And you
That's
look-
what happens right now.
Exactly. Now you're seeing that a lot of these protocols also have their own VC funds on the
Yep.
side, right?
Yeah.
So if you just try and quantify how much VC money is going in, and you try to gauge the multipliers from the 2017 hype and the max, which is about 15x,
no funeral.
we're going into a rally like in the next 6 months, and it doesn't matter what you call
Guys,
it.
raise your
Alt
glasses. We have extended
No.
time because we had so much fun.
Wait.
Don't drink so much, Yaniv. I know.
Yeah. We want to
Okay.
invite everyone to the DNDD.
What a
Next
shill.
Tuesday, if we're shilling.
Shilling.
Shill it.
Yeah, okay, I'm going to be in a panel, so
I
ask me.
really
Yes,
should.
we got a
Yeah,
shilling
write a
panel
presentation.
for shillers.
For Schillers,
Yeah.
DNDD Blockchain Week in Tel Aviv. Everybody's going to
there.
be there. So will you. We were Block TV. Have a great weekend.
Woo!
Cheers.
For more news and updates, follow us on Twitter